ladies and gentlemen, our guest today is an old friend of mine who I have not spoken to. Not that there's heat, but I haven't known where he was in quite a long time. But I've spoken to him in 30 years, and thanks to the manipulations and the stalker-like tendencies of Brian Last, who can find anybody in the world, he's found this gentleman. But he's a guy that I hope there's no heat, because I probably got him into a riot or two over the course of the years. But he has been known under many names, most affectionately the Golden Boy, direct from Florida, Jerry Gray. Jerry, it's good to talk to you again.
Oh, it's a pleasure, Jim. It's been so many years since we've spoken, and the last time was in Florida, I believe, but it wasn't as many riots as there were back in the Mid-South days. We had some good time.
And I just thought, I guess you're still in Florida, right? Because that's where you're from.
Yeah, Orlando, yep.
But we spent some time together in 1984 in Mid-South Wrestling, and I don't know, how old were you back then? I was like 22. Yeah, just 22.
Yeah, I was about 21, so we were both youngsters.
We were all. It was a young crew. Even Ricky and Robert were young back then, and that was people still saw in black and white when they were young. And Bobby Eaton and Dennis was the senior member of our group, but Buddy Landell was like 23 or 24, and so many of those young guys, they did record business because everybody in the crew was hungry. Where did you come from? How'd you get started? Because you'd only been working a couple of years at that point, right?
Yeah, I started in Florida with it was an outlaw group. Louis Tillett, he had Austin Idol, Sunbelt Wrestling, it was called.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, you remember it didn't last too long because Eddie Graham made sure of that. But he had pretty good names at first. He had Austin Idol, Jimmy Valiant, Thunderbolt Patterson, Malenko, and then Eddie Graham didn't. He put an end to that pretty quick. I told Brian the other day, he started running twice a week. Eddie Graham did, even though he only ran Orlando usually on Sundays. Eddie did. He started running on Fridays and Sunday, 2 shows a week, the same day that Louis had his show on Friday, just to kill their show.
And and with Idol and Handsome Jimmy, I get Brian. You may know. Was that a period of time where Jimmy was in Memphis, or was he in the Carolinas? Because I can't imagine him leaving Memphis when Jarrett was so close to Eddie Graham to work that outlaw group. But I remember him making some of the shows.
Sunbelt Wrestling, I believe, was Louis Tillett, Don Curtis, and I believe Malenko had a share of it too. So really, 3 guys very close to Eddie Graham, now on the outs of the promotion. And Don Curtis, of course, had Jacksonville. So you had that. Idol from the area got an offer to come in, and he was given percentages or points in the company. And I believe he got Jimmy Valiant the same deal. So for whatever limited time it was in operation, that's how Jimmy got involved, was they actually were given percentage points in the outlaw company.
Yeah. And it was, so how long did they last, Jerry? Do you remember?
They lasted about 6 months, but as far as with the top names like Idol, and they were only there for a couple of shows. I don't know. I think I don't know what Eddie might have called. Crockett got, Eddie got Jim Crockett to book Jimmy Valiant back up there. I don't know. I think Idol went back to Georgia probably pretty quick because.
It sounds like one of those Jim Baker deals where they gave away more points in the company than there were points. So it had something to do with the success, but at least it gave you a spot to break in. Were you poisoned with the regular Florida office at that point, or did they take pity on the poor rookies and not blackball you?
Oh no! I had to go through a lot of paying dues after that because I made a mistake too when I first went to I went to Eddie not too long after that, and he was really pissed at Louis Tillett and Malenko and all of them for doing that, so he asked me who trained me, and I made the mistake of saying Louis Tillett, and then I didn't understand, I was just like 18 years old. I was like 18 looking at Eddie Graham. He was like, first he liked me, oh, young kid, who trained you? Yeah. I was like, Louis Tillett, and he goes, he turned heel all of a sudden. I was like, time to pay dues now. He put me in there with Buzz Tyler, Avalanche Tyler first. He half killed me, and then since he didn't kill me, then he had the next week was against King Kong Tonga Ming.
Oh, good Lord!
Yeah, I think he told him to go ahead and just kill me all the way, but I didn't understand, so I thought they were just wanting me to be stiff back. So then that was a big mistake I really made, trying to be stiff back with Tonga Ming. So I paid some dues, yeah, definitely. I said the wrong name.
When did you get a chance? Because back in those days, when guys got started kind of in their home territory, they usually were, underneath guys and had to go somewhere.
Yeah.
And then, as I say, how can we miss you if you won't go away? But the guys would go somewhere else and get better and get a gimmick and then try to come back. But where did you first get a chance to go somewhere?
Well, when I first started there, it was J.J. Dillon was booking with Dory Funk, and then Dusty came in and started booking. And then I asked him if he could send me on the road, and then he sent me to Charlotte, where I finally went. And then when I came back after a couple of years, that was after Mid-South and everything, and then Eddie liked me. He forgot about the Louis Tollett stuff. So, yeah, I did have to go away for a while.
God damn, that's a lot of pressure on you that Charlotte would be your first territory.
Yeah.
Just the level of talent there. And they had a lot of guys in the territory, but they ran so many towns.
3 shows a night back then.
Was George Scott working at that point?
No, I was I actually lived with Jake Roberts and Gene Anderson. I think Gene was he was one of in the office. I think he might have been the assistant, but assistant booker, but Dory Funk was the booker while I was there. Yeah. And then I think that was after George Scott was already gone for a while. But yeah, that was a real initiation too, living with Jake Roberts for 6 to 8 months.
Oh, good Lord. This was not during a period of time that he had calmed down. I'm pretty sure, was it?
It wasn't all the way down, but he was never, I don't think he was ever up too good. But anyway, I learned a lot from him though, but he was pretty wild then even. And Gene Anderson, I learned a lot from him, definitely. He was a good guy.
What, the travel schedule was different in the Carolinas than you had to be used to in Florida, because Florida was beautiful. The longest trip was either Miami or Tallahassee or something at one end of the state or the other. But in the Carolinas, you had some road trips. The schedule, they were really stretching it.
Yeah, they were running 3 shows a night. 3 shows a night then. I remember, yeah. And then, it was nothing like Mid-South, so you could attest to that.
Well, yeah, I guess did you come from Charlotte directly to Mid-South?
No, actually, Johnny Weaver sent me to Memphis. I don't know when did you go to Mid-South? What year? 80?
We were there with you in the first part of ’84. Because remember, we were on the Super. We'll talk about the Superdome story in a minute.
Yeah. See, they sent me to Memphis first from Charlotte, and then
must have
Lawler
just missed you. We had just
I know. Yeah. And Lawler did me a big favor and sent me to Mid-South. So they were doing good in Memphis. Yeah, they were doing good in Memphis too at that time, though. And that's right about that time. I mean, it was really hot then.
Well,
I think Lawler was booking.
That's the problem. Everybody was doing good then, but you went from Charlotte, and you weren't in Memphis too long. I remember I would have seen you, but at the same time, you went from the Charlotte territory where you could do the double Charleston, South Carolina to Charleston, West Virginia. It's 500 miles, and then you go to Mid-South. That the trips are legendary. But that was at the time we had just gone down at the Memphis territory had just got Rick Rude and Masayo Ito and Hacksaw Higgins and another couple of guys from Louisiana, and us and the Rock and Roll, and those guys had gone down there. So you were in a great place where all the territories were working together. Florida could send you to Charlotte could send you to Memphis, etc.
Yeah, that was a good day. Definitely. I'm like you. I'm old school. I can't stand it nowadays, but we'll talk about that later. But yeah.
So when you got to Mid-South, that was the first time you'd met Bill Dundee, right? Or had he been there a couple weeks still in Memphis?
No, I didn't meet him in Memphis. He was already in. I guess you guys. I don't know exactly when you guys went, but it couldn't have been too long before I got there. Because I remember you're the first person I met actually at what was the name of that place? Saint Bernard Civic Center.
The Saint Bernard, yes. It's in the suburbs of New Orleans. The Saint Bernard Parish, and God, that place was fucking dangerous to get in and out of if they were pissed at you.
Yeah, I was trying to find where the dressing room was, and I remember you were the first person I met walking down the hall. And you were like, "Oh, you okay? There's more dressing rooms in here."
What a welcome! I was the official greeter of Mid-South.
Oh, yeah.
So when you came in and you met Dundee, it's the first time you worked for him as a booker, and Mid-South Watts had obviously the legendary rules, and it was the strictest territory. Don't be late or you get fined. Wear professional clothes or you get fined. Don't bury the referee or this, do that, or you get fined. What was it like? I've always said it's like a military school for wrestling. What was it like for you? You'd worked some pretty professional, big-time territories, but how was Mid-South different?
I didn't have too many problems because I rode with Carl Fergie all the time. I don't know if you remember.
Yeah, cousin Carl. I'd managed him the previous summer in Georgia, but I know him for years because he's Lawler's cousin. He'd been wrestling up here.
Oh yeah, he did the ring and everything, and so I rode with him. So I was always early. I didn't have to worry about that part. But I did get fined one time by Grizzly Smith for because I was a heel and Terry Taylor was a babyface, and we were talking to a girl wrestling fan outside, and then he seen us, so he was jealous.
a young female wrestling fan is how we will term that.
I won't call her that.
Okay, but in all seriousness, okay, ladies and gentlemen, I didn't make this shit up. People accuse me of making it up. Even though Terry Taylor, and I'm not downgrading your status on the card at this point, but Terry Taylor was at that time one of the top baby faces, and you were more of an undercard heel. Y'all didn't have any issue, but still it was co-mingling of the species, which was not allowed. And they found it like what, $50?
Yeah, but I think mainly it was because of Chester. I mean, Grizzly was jealous because the young girl, because Watts always told us to go ahead and take care of the young girls, keep them coming.
Well, and that's another thing they think I made up.
No, that was true.
But the baby faces were expected to do more than carry their fair share of the load. Let's put it that way.
But I was. Go ahead.
I was just going to say, but at the time you could learn a lot there, and business was so hot. I guess the guys were still up and down the card were making good money because things had popped so well at that point in time. Oh yeah,
I remember. I still got some of those check stubs. I was making over $1,000 a week just first matches. I don't know what time. Go ahead.
Well, I was just going to, which would be something like what, $2,500 today.
That's what I'm saying.
For guys, and you had to work for it though with that schedule.
Oh, but I didn't mind.
That's what I was going to ask you. Did we ever get you unfortunately mixed up in any of our riots?
Oh yeah, every night there was, he definitely caused a lot of good heat.
I know it. We had like you and Buddy and Darso. Barry Darso was good. We had a crew of people, Brian. Yeah. Back in the back and watch our match to see how many of them needed to help us get back to the locker room.
Yeah,
you never got sued though, did you?
No, I was trying to think which town was the worst because I remember one night in Biloxi, Mississippi. It seemed like the whole ringside came after you. It seemed like one night there. I remember that night, and then either Oklahoma City or Tulsa was the bad
Tulsa.
Yeah, Tulsa. Oklahoma City was a nice building, and then Tulsa was the rough crowd.
Yeah, Oak City was the safest building in the territory. In Tulsa, we had like somebody in the ring 6 shows in a row at our match. But in the one in Biloxi, was that the if you remember, I don't know what style we did something to Ricky Morton with my shoe or my belt. And because he's told the story, he's laying there with one eye watching it. But that's where this big farm boy came at Bobby, and Bobby front face locked him, and the guy just stood up like an elephant and was waving Bobby's legs in the air and wiped out a whole section ringside with Bobby's body, waving him back and forth.
Yeah, that's what started. Yeah, now I remember. Yeah, I think that was the night. Yeah,
and it was so dark. Remember how dark it was in Biloxi? They had the ring lights and nothing else in that big building, and half of it was empty.
Yeah,
so you couldn't see your hand in front of your face.
Yeah, it was definitely dangerous. And then Baton Rouge.
Oh, the Centroplex. Yeah.
Yeah, I was telling Brian the other day with Dundee that time when they didn't know who Dundee was.
Yeah,
Bill Dundee.
he was listed as John Doe in the paperwork because when the guy swung at me and missed me because he jumped up and leaned over the rail and swung at me and I ducked that. And as the cops rushed him and I rushed to try to hit him with the racket and Dundee came from behind the rail because he was watching. Since he was the booker, he wasn't wrestling. Nobody knew who the fuck he was.
Yeah.
He came behind the rail and peppered the guy with about 4 of those working punches, which were worse than the guy.
Yeah. Yeah, I remember. Yeah.
And even the cops didn't know who he was. They kept looking for the fucking little black-haired guy for the next 3 shows.
Yeah, that's right.
John Doe from Australia.
Oh my God. Yeah, and then I remember what a good worker. I mean, Bobby Eaton, everybody knows how good he was, but I remember Condrey. I always thought he was like one of the most underrated, one of the best ever. Dennis Condrey.
Oh God, he was the team captain at that point because he was. People don't realize how good he was because everything was so smooth and so effortless. But he never made a mistake, never in the wrong place. Who were your favorite guys to work with at that point when you first got into business? Going through Charlotte and Mid-South, there was some great talent there.
I'm trying to think. Let's see. Mid-South, there was a lot of guys there. Lanny Poffo, I always liked working with him. It was good. Was he still there when you guys were there?
Yeah, he was there for about a month when we got there, and then he went to Memphis when Randy called him in.
Yeah, that's right. Okay. Because Watts sent us to World Class to do a couple of shots, me and Lanny Poffo. And it must have been right after David Von Erich had just died in Japan because Kevin and Kerry and Mike and all them were in the dressing room. And they did. I never heard any stories about the Von Erichs before, and they kept coming up to me and introducing themselves to me, and I thought they were kind of ribbing me a little bit at first, after they already said like 2 or 3 times. I was like, this is so cool. And then I was just like, man, and they were telling me all kinds of stories. Like, I don't think I even knew Dave had died because it just happened probably pretty much right about that time we went there. But yeah, I did a couple of shots there. I was a babyface too, so I was in the dressing room with them, the Von Erichs. So. It was pretty entertaining.
I was there one night. Kerry was such a nice guy, but I was there the one night he wrote the shorthand version of the finish on the palm of his hand with a Sharpie, but it sweated it off.
Oh no!
I couldn't remember what the. Hey, speaking of, you told this story. I know this is another advertisement for the 605, the mothership. Because I know you told this story, but Brian had told me, had delayed the information to me, and I've got a fresh slant on it. But you actually wrestled Tom Zink in the Superdome in April of '84. It was on the undercard there when Watts was going to bring Zink in and make him a big baby face, but he quit after a week and he couldn't take the trips or whatever the fuck and bailed. But tell the story of when Watts came up to you, what he said afterwards, because you're the one who take over.
I was kind of shocked. Yeah, I still have the program from that night actually, but they said my name was John Gray. They misspelled it and everything. But anyway, it was like a couple nights later in Baton Rouge, and Watts came up to me and because he didn't talk too much to the boys, that much really, but he came up to me and said he apologized to me for. He said, I can't believe this kid quit whatever he made, $2,000-$3,000 a week or whatever. He was saying bad stuff about him. I was just like, I don't know what happened, but I don't know what. I think he only did like a couple matches. I mean, I don't know. I remember. I think I worked him almost every time. I think
Brian wasn't it that he cracked up on the travel and the schedule and just the whole 9 yards of the thing. What do you remember?
Tom Zink's story was, and parts of it definitely 100% verifiable, or at least they sound believable, was that his father got ill after just a couple of days in Mid-South, and he had to go home. And he told Watts, and Bill Watts' reaction was, well, you're a flake, boy. He called him a boy. No concern about his father, but more, what kind of man leaves.
I believe that.
So I believe
I believe he said that.
Oh, God. But the best part was Watts apologized to you for having you put him over, right?
Yeah. And I was just like, yeah, whatever, it's fine with me. The payoff, I don't care, whatever.
I told Brian, I said, the fucking thing is, knowing Watts, that's the biggest offense that he could have committed against you as a professional. He could use you for a tackling dummy when showing guys how to do shit at TV in the locker room, and he wouldn't get upset.
Oh yeah.
Or whatever, but having you do a job for a guy that he felt was unworthy and then ended up leaving the territory violated the number one rule of his fucking professional ethics. I love it.
Yeah, I don't even know who trained him, but he didn't know much of anything when he worked with me, Tom Zink. But I don't know who trained him, but I don't think it was Gagne. But I remember Rock and Roll. I wrote back with them one night. I would have got fined for that if Watts would have found that out. But anyway, they told me that they said this Zink guy's asking us how to work like we do. They said, we told him we've been working 10 years. You ain't gonna learn it in 1 week how we work, man. They got so mad. They were like, "What the hell are you talking about? Work like we do."
Okay, I'll ride with you in the car for an hour and a half and tell you how to work like we do.
Yeah.
Good Lord. Tell me, I'm remembering you for whatever reason. You had the guru gimmick, right?
Yeah, I did. Yeah.
Where was that? When was that? I'm trying to remember.
That was Memphis. That was Dutch and we were still in Mid-South, and then that's when Dundee was getting ready to go back to Memphis with Dutch. And I remember Watts said, Dundee already said he's not going to steal any of my talent. And then I didn't think he'd care if I left, but I guess that was the second time I think it was Dick Slater was taking over. I think you guys had already left too.
Yeah, we'd gone to Dallas.
Yeah, that's right. So then he was saying that he's not going to steal my talent, and then Dundee had already had the plan for me to come up there, and Fergie said, Watts was so mad that I was leaving. I was like, well, should give me pay or push her a little bit more pay or something. Yeah. Anyway, I didn't even know that he was mad until the end. And then, but I was the guru. Yeah, there was Dundee. They called me Dundee's guru at first, like the Elvis thing where Elvis had I guess Elvis had a guru, and Andy Kaufman did too, right? Yeah.
Yes, but the Maharishi, yeah. Because I remember getting the Memphis shows and remember seeing you doing that, because I always watched the Memphis tapes when I was in other territories. And that looked fun. Who was Dundee? Had he taken the book back then, or was it Dutch booking at that point?
No, it was Dundee. And then I think you came in, you guys, the Charlotte crew came in to do a Memphis show once, because I remember everybody was there, Flair, Dusty, and you. Midnight.
Yeah, that's when we did the Bash co-promotion deal in some of Jarrett's towns. Yeah.
And they didn't even recognize me, most of the guys, because I had changed a big beard and I had my hair real short, and then I remember you told me to roll my eyes back on my head because you know how weak Bobby Eaton's stomach is, and he was almost throwing up because I did the eye back in the head.
That's right. Now, Brian, here's I've told people that you could show Bob eating a booger and make him throw up. You could let a good fart and make him throw up.
Oh, yeah.
If you convinced him that somehow KFC chicken gravy looked like baby shit, you could make him throw up. But Jerry Gray actually made him throw up by just rolling his eyes back in his head.
Yeah. I remember that. I couldn't believe it.
Oh, fuck.
Hey, Jim, Jerry said something to me on the Super Podcast that I actually, if I knew it, I had forgotten it, but I said, I got to make sure this comes up to Jimmy. Jerry, tell Jimmy who you were friends with, who you drove Louis Tillet's furniture with.
Oh, yeah, Brian Hildebrand.
Oh, my God.
Yeah, remember when he went to college in Dayton?
Yes.
Yeah, actually.
Louis Tillett had been booking for Buddy Fuller when Buddy Fuller tried to open up Ohio, right?
Yeah, they brought some of the Memphis guys in. They had a Midnight Express, but it was just Randy Rose there wasn't nobody else but him and some other, I can't remember who it was, Jeff Sword.
Yes.
And then Wayne Harris was there. And then, but Brian, he saved me from having to live with Eddie Mansfield. I had to live with Eddie Mansfield for a couple of weeks, and then I was going crazy because I was ready to kill him. And then I don't know if you've ever been around Eddie Mansfield. But
I never did, but I have a feeling, as somebody said about somebody else one time, I would have stabbed him in the heart.
Yeah. So Brian said.
So you came up with the Florida guys that was involved with Louis Tillett and hung out with Brian Hildebrand. That's insane. I didn't even. As a matter of fact, do you remember? Were you there? Because Brian Hildebrand came to Mid-South and spent a week with me early there.
I was there.
You were there, yes. I remember he was taking pictures in Shreveport, yeah.
Yeah. He came up to me and said, "Yeah, you learned the abdominal stretch from me," because we used to have some great matches, me and him. He was a really good worker. He told me to come live with him in his college dorm. He lived in with like 10 other people. That way, I didn't have to live with Eddie Mansfield in the hotel anymore. So then we would have matches all over this big old house, and he'd be climb up the top stairs and doing flying body presses on me and everything. So we had some really good matches. And then, I was around him a lot. I was about 3 months probably. I stayed with him up there in that college dorm.
Yeah, then, God, he was really hoping that that area would get started, with more wrestling again. And Georgia was making inroads up there at about that same time, but he didn't have an Georgia office. But once he got, as a matter of fact, he came to Memphis TV when I started, and he had been refereeing and working up there for Buddy Fuller when Buddy was getting the Memphis guys. So Jerry Jarrett sees Brian come in the back of Channel 5 in Memphis, backdoor TV with me. And he was going to shoot pictures that day for the magazine, but Jarrett came up and he called me in the office. He said, "Who's that with you?" I said, he's smart to the business. Well, I said, he's worked for Buddy Fuller. I figured that was good enough, right? And that's what Jarrett, he hit me with the immortal line. He may be smart to the business, but he's not smart to my business. Don't bring him in the back. I'm like, fuck. Yeah. I mean, that's now if you're a goddamn usher from the local movie theater, you're probably standing in the locker room.
You can go, Yeah, he loved it though. He's got the referee there, and then I remember Louis tricked us into coming to. He told us he was going to get us booked in Alabama for Fuller's then, because they folded after, like always, like they folded again up there in Ohio. Same thing happened again. But then he said, "Come on to Charlotte," and then Brian said he was going to take off school, I guess, so he rode with me to Charlotte, and then Louis didn't tell us all this was going to happen. Then he had us move his whole house in Charlotte, and I just watched us move everything in storage and do all this work we had to do. And then, keep following me to all the Pensacola. We go all the way there, and he got me booked one shot, and then he didn't get Brian booked, and Brian just stayed there anyway we stayed a few days, and then I think he had to take a bus back. Louis left us stranded.
Oh, Christ.
I was like, yeah, real nice.
Well, the Louis Tillett, Ohio run with Buddy Fuller was the second incarnation of that company, because at first they had gotten Memphis TV up there, and Buddy Fuller was going to run like Springfield, Ohio, and Dayton, Ohio, and maybe Cincinnati, that area of the state, and they were using the Memphis TV and using the Memphis guys.
What year?
This was, I think, 81, because they even had a Lawler and Funk match in Dayton. So I believe it was 81, but the point is that only lasted a couple go rounds because Jarrett kept getting the box office reports, and he sent Dundee up one time on one of the shows to fucking see. And supposedly there was like 2,000 people there at $5 tickets, and they turned in $4,000 or whatever, right?
Oh yeah.
That was the famous incident where Buddy claimed that they had forgotten to put a building guard on the back door. And apparently we were led to believe that 1,200 people snuck in the back door without paying.
Yeah, I think that happened a couple of times.
Yeah, that's when the Memphis guys came back, and that's when he got the Louis Tillett's guys from the other side of the family.
He had some still, because Wayne Ferris was there. That's where I first met him. He was there. Randy Rose, Ron Fuller was up there.
Yeah, that was the guys from Alabama. When Buddy couldn't get any more guys from Jerry Jarrett, he got the guys from his son Ron.
Oh, okay. I wonder. Yeah, but they didn't draw because they didn't advertise. I mean, they had a couple good houses. And Springfield was good, I remember, and then Dayton, and then Dick Steinborn was there, I remember, and they did a hard way on. Who was it? I think either Austin Idol did the hard way or Dick Steinborn on that guy. What was that guy's name? Darv Roach. Remember that guy?
Oh, Dorvay Roach. Yeah, from Charlotte. Yeah. But when you said Austin Idol did the hard way, I was about to say it perpetrated it, not accepted it. I'm fairly sure.
The idol's right here, standing here. Don't talk about the idol.
Wow, that's pretty good. That's pretty good.
Yeah, I can. He comes here all the time. I can have him call in sometime if you want. Anyway, Austin Idol, I never seen nobody work out as hard as he did in the gym, though. Jesus, I went to the gym with him one day, and him and Alvarez, and I was there for like 4 hours. I was like, is he ever going to quit working out? Jesus. I mean, I never seen anybody work out like he did.
That's how he got those guns. That's how he got those guns.
Let him hear this so I get some points with him. Anyway. Yeah, he, what was I just talking about? Something else, but I don't. Anyway, he did the hard way. And I was like, I hope they ain't gonna do that on me, because I was like 18 years old, and I was like, what the hell's going on? Hard way. And then, he busted him, and he didn't do it right either. So it might have been idle, because he didn't bust him, so he had to keep doing it, like on his eyebrow, and I think it didn't really bust him.
That's like you remember when Bobby Fulton and Terry Taylor were the first version of the Fantastics down in Chattanooga, but you remember Frank Morrell, the Angel.
Oh, yeah.
And him and Jerry Novak, we did the deal one time where we had torn up the Fantastic One's jackets on Chattanooga TV, and that night they were going to get even. And they come in with the heels are standing in the ring, Frank Morrell, the Angel, and the bounty hunter, Jerry Novak, and I'm there. We're watching the door, and all of a sudden they come in the front, right? The old misdirection play where they come in the front door and they jump in the ring with boards, and they're going to break the boards over the Angel and the bounty hunter's heads. And Bobby Fulton knew the gimmick, right? We'd prepared the boards, and he knew that if you commit one time to a real sharp shot, that thing's going to break and splinter, and hopefully nobody will get hurt. But if you don't, which Terry Taylor didn't, he was trying to work poor Frank Morrell, and he was hitting him with that board, and every time he'd hit him just hard enough to put a knot on Frank's head, but not break
jeez.
And after about 4 or 5 fucking hits and 4 or 5 fucking knots, Frank just cut him off. He cut off his big baby face fucking and said, fuck you, boom, and dropped him.
Oh, my God. I never heard that one. Jesus.
Oh, Christ.
That's funny.
But shit like that used to happen in the old days. What's the strangest thing that ever happened to you in the middle of a fucking match?
Oh, jeez.
Can you think of it off the top of your head?
Well, just scary looking guy like Joe LeDuc, the way he looked, he got on top of me one time and just said, he was laying on me for real, like amateur position. He was like, what would you do if it was a shoot? I was already kind of scared of him anyway. I was like, he wouldn't let me up. I was like, what the hell? This fucking crazy looking guy. Jesus. That was kind of weird, I was like,
LeDuc was so fucking frightening.
Oh my God.
If you were in the business, you could still convince yourself that he was legitimate. Yeah. You were and he was the nicest guy when you got to
Yeah.
Were you there that night in Florida? It was in St. Petersburg. Stan Lane could not be there because of a pending paternity issue in the state of Florida. And Buddy Landell teamed with Bobby Eaton. It was in St. Petersburg. Remember the Bayfront had those big lights?
Oh, yeah.
The big ceiling?
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
We're having a match. I can't remember who it was, but it was after they bought the Florida territory and they sent us all guys down there. So you may have, but one of the lights exploded.
Oh,
the light, the bulbs in the ceiling was very high, and these bulbs were in the ceiling. It wasn't like a hanging light. So and they were the big bulbs that were the vapor lights or whatever, and it got so hot, it busts and glass falls in the ring. And when we heard the pop, we knew it came from above, so we just all covered up our fucking heads. But my racket is laying on the edge of the ring, and one of those pieces of glass fell on the racket cover, and it was so hot it melted the fucking vinyl.
Jesus. No,
and so we had to stop while I think Tommy Young may have been the referee, but we got a broom and cleaned the ring out.
Oh my God.
You never knew what screwy shit was going to happen in those days. People in the fucking ring, somebody going into business for themselves. Is the shit blowing up around you?
Speaking of that, remember that town? What was the name of that weird town in Louisiana that we had? They were all drunk when they got there. That Jimmy Garvin had to.
Galliano? Were you in Galliano?
Yeah.
Oh my!
I was there, and I was in the match. One of the first matches, and the lights went out in the building. I don't know what happened. Like there was, I don't know, somebody pulled a rib or what, but it was just like pitch dark. Right where you get ready to do a high spot, me and Joel Savoldi or somebody. And it was just like they were out for, that seemed like forever, but it was at least like, I'd say a minute at least.
Well, it was like a fishing village as far south as you could go, with one road in and one road out. Tell the people what happened to Jimmy. Jimmy Garvin had Precious with him.
Yeah.
And that did not go well at all for Jimmy Garvin and Precious.
somebody locked the dressing room door and she couldn't get in. I forget who did that. Remember? And then she was banging on the door and they were freaking out because she was stuck out there with all the people. She was trying to go back to the dressing room. I remember.
Well, they had the dressing room door, the Heels dressing room door locked on purpose.
Yeah.
So that people couldn't get in and kill us. But
that's what it was. Yeah.
Brian, when she went to because Jimmy was hot, when she went to the ring, the people molested her so badly on the way to the ring that when Jimmy got in the ring, he assessed the situation and said, "Squeeze, you're not staying out here. Turn around and go back." And the cops tried to get her back without getting raped, but then she's come back early and the door is locked and she's beating on the door like, "Let me."
We probably thought it was the fans trying to get in, so nobody would open it for her.
Yeah, that's what he said. There's no way he could have even allowed her to stay at ringside. So then, when we had our match, it was against Magnum and JYD, and we were supposed to get disqualified, and we did the over the top rope where Magnum rolls Bobby Eaton up, Dennis Condrey grabs him and throws him over the top rope for us to get disqualified. By the time Magnum hit the floor, we were already all three on the floor and rushing to the back. Because when we went out, the entrance, a guy had thrown a beer in Bobby's face and blinded him before the match started. And I had a thing of mace in my jacket pocket that I was carrying for just such a reason. And well, you remember all that shit, didn't they? They did the same thing to you guys, didn't they? When the show was over, the cops cleared the building and then walked everybody to their cars and surrounded the cars and walked them off the property.
Yeah, it was dangerous. And that Homa, too, it was bad. Remember Homa? Because you couldn't even get out of the building without going into the people.
Yeah, the dressing room was a cinder block room with one tiny, looked like a cell window, so a human couldn't crawl out of it, and you had to go out the door into the arena in order to come into the locker room or go out of it. So we had to, as heels, we always had to get there before they opened the doors for the people, and we always had to wait until they cleared the building out, and then that's when we'd get into some beef in the parking lot. That's where the Rock and Roll Express. Oh, yeah. I almost told the story at the Hall of Fame ceremony, and I don't remember why I didn't. Probably time. But they started the car up as me and Dennis Condrey were surrounded by about 12 guys in the parking lot in Homa one night. The Rock and Roll get and start their car up and hit the bright lights and drive into the people and give us a chance to jump in the car and get away. Yeah,
the babies had to save heels all the time back in those days.
Or when did you ever see Grizzly Smith take anybody out of the downtown auditorium in New Orleans in the trunk of his car like he did DiBiase when he turned on Dog?
I didn't see him do that. No.
I think he's had two or three heels during the course of his time in the trunk of his car to leave the building.
Oh God! Yeah, I heard about it.
But well, you how long has it been since you? Because after you quit wrestling, you ran your own shows down there also for a while, didn't you?
Yeah, I ran up until I got the cancer, like in 2013. So, well,
that's what I was going to say. It's been quite a while since you wrestled, but you've been still involved in the business and running, on a regular basis.
Yeah, up until 2013 is when I remember you used to give me some good numbers when you were working at the WWE, WWF. And I'd call you up there and you'd give me some different guys' numbers that were just leaving or whatever. Jake and people like that.
Yeah, I was. Jake was always just about leaving. But
that was right.
I was always trying to get the guys booked that needed some extra bookings.
Yeah.
But God Almighty, well, listen. That's you've brought up something that they've done a couple of wrestling shows, live events down there recently, and you've got a GoFundMe set up also because you were diagnosed with cancer a few years ago, and it's been a long process. And without going into all of your details, you do at this point, the GoFundMe and the shows are to help with some of your medical bills, like we have to do here. I always rant and rave on the podcast to the folks in the other countries who don't understand that when we get sick in the United States, sometimes we need financial help because we get none from the government.
Yeah, that's the truth.
What are the details on the GoFundMe? Or I guess, Brian, you can give the address.
It is tinyurl.com tinyurl.com/GoFundGoldenBoy. And that'll take you to the usual page. The address isn't very friendly to just be read out loud, so this is an easy way to get there. tinyurl.com/GoFundGoldenBoy.
And when you got your diagnosis, Jerry, is that when you decided, obviously, running wrestling under any circumstances, even with bad health, or even with good health, is challenging?
Yeah.
Is that when you decided to say, were you still wrestling then too? You genetic freak.
Yeah, it was until that, and then I can't even fly either now because I had pulmonary embolism, blood clots too, so I can't fly either. So I put an end to even, trying to travel and do the show even, because I was doing shows mostly like in different states because Florida's not too good anymore. But I was doing like fairs and casinos, like the late '90s up until. Like I said, up until around 2012 really is when all this stuff started happening. But I was doing like casinos and out west, like New Mexico and places like that, and fairs, guaranteed shows. We don't have to worry about losing a bunch of money.
Exactly. But those are the best kind. And a lot of people are probably going to say, well, why is Florida not good? Because Florida's great if you want to give away tickets to a wrestling promotion. Florida's wonderful, but people don't understand that. You've promoted, you understand, like when you have a history of people giving away free tickets over and over in the same area, it's pretty hard to get people to pay for the same shit.
Yeah, that's the truth. Definitely.
But we wanted to encourage everybody to help with the GoFundMe, because this has been a long process for you, but you sound good and chipper.
Yeah. Telling old stories keeps me, but not watching this new stuff doesn't keep me chipper.
Yeah.
I'm like you. I have to fast forward and just record to see if there's anything good going to happen, maybe, hopefully.
Do what I do and stay away from the new stuff, and you'll adopt a better attitude on life in general.
That's what
Brian, and once again, for the sake of the folks who listen to the mothership, Jerry, part 2 of Jerry is on this week, right? Is that not part 2?
Part 2 is on this week. Once again, tinyurl.com/GoFundGoldenBoy. But before we check out here, Jim, I have to have Jerry tell you one thing, because I thought of you when I heard it. Jerry, of course, Jerry grew up in Ohio. On the Super Podcast, you mentioned to me a tag team you got to see, one of whose members was Chris Colt. Tell Jim Cornette what tag team you got to see.
Oh, yeah, in Ohio. It was Chris Colt and Count Drummer. I think they were called the Time Machine. They were the tag team champions up there for the Sheik back around 1975. Yeah.
I would have loved to have seen them, because I saw the publicity picture. Count Drummer, Chris Colt, the Time Machine. Count Drummer was like an 1890s vampire, and Chris Colt was a space alien from the 21st century, right?
Yeah. It was good.
But the thing is, for everybody says now Cornette doesn't like fucking comedy wrestling or whatever, the problem is they really looked like a vampire from the 1890s, a space alien from the 21st century.
I think they really were.
that may have explained Chris Colt at least. I'm jealous now that I didn't get to see that, because I saw the publicity picture alone, and that made me want to buy the tickets. Hey,
I got to work him too. I got to work Chris Colt too in Oregon, like in 1985 when he came back out to Oregon, or I guess he was from out there somewhere. I got to wrestle him in '85 when I was out in Portland.
What was he like? What was it? What was the match like? Was he in one of his good periods or bad periods?
Well, from what Brian said, I guess he must have been altered, because he was calm and normal. so he, I wish I would have got to travel with him, because I was a baby face then. I wanted to travel with him, a little bit, see how he's like, but I just, in the ring with him and everything, but he was real easy. Real good.
I don't know if you wanted to travel with him necessarily.
He wanted me to one night. Him and all the Hills wanted me to jump in the van with him, but
I'm sure they did.
I don't know if I should. I know. I was like, I don't know if I should or not.
You were such a good-looking young man. I believe you got both there.
Yeah.
If you think traveling with Carl Fergie gets you involved in some activities, I'm sure you should have. All right. This may better be the place where we close up before we malign poor Carl Fergie's reputation any further.
Yeah, Fergie's going to get
Good, Jerry. Thank you for being on the show. We encourage everybody to go to the GoFundMe. help you out because you provided a lot of people a lot of entertainment, me included, and helped save my neck on a couple of occasions. And
I appreciate it.
Everybody go listen to Brian's shows because he gets his nose out of snoot if you don't. And obviously, otherwise, come back next week for the experience. Come back Monday for the drive-through. Go to the YouTube channel in the meantime and in between times